Welcome to the DNA of Things podcast, where we explore the intersection of cutting-edge genomics, groundbreaking technologies to empower individuals to know themselves and to live better. Now, today's episode delves into how innovative solutions are transforming health data management specifically and patient empowerment. So, if you're one of those people who has lost track of your medical records or who has gotten, let's say, suboptimal or even harmful care because of the lack of this resource, I think you're going to really want to dig into this conversation. Our guest today is Daniel Uribe, CEO and co-founder of Genomic.io. He has a background in cybersecurity and business, remarkable combination, and he has pioneered the use of blockchain technology in a Web3 environment, by the way, to secure and manage genetic data, personal health data, all this so we are ensured of our privacy and control over our individual data. And actually, this is very much a family approach. So imagine having your own, family health data repository. What better decisions might you make for yourself so that you live longer and you're there as a parent to your child, and what you might do to affect and improve the health span of the next generation, your children. So in this episode, we journey through Daniel's personal story and the founding of Genomic.io. And personal story in particular is, very personal. His son affected with a rare disease, rare undiagnosed. And, this is a really incredible story where, Daniel's a hero for stepping up and creating the solution to improve to save and improve the life of his son, and now making this solution available for 1,000 families. That's his first goal. So we discussed the transformative impact of blockchain in genomics, how families can now own and control their genetic information, their health data at large, and the broader implications for patient advocacy and healthcare innovation. Listeners will gain insights into the future of personalized health data management and the importance of data privacy and how these advancements can directly impact their lives. So let's dive in and meet Daniel. Welcome, Daniel Uribe, CEO and co-founder of Genomic.io. Welcome to the DNA of Things.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure and honor to be in your program and with your audience, Jeremy. Thank you very much.
Oh, well, I think we're going to find that the pleasure is all ours, where today we get to explore explore two frontiers that are both cutting edge. So innovations in genomics and blockchain. That's a rare find. So I'm really excited to, dig into the technology that you're building, the vision and mission behind, what it is that you're doing. This isn't your first rodeo. You're a serial entrepreneur, formal training in business. You have an MBA, but you are now here today, the CEO and co-founder of Genomic, and the work you're doing to secure, transparent ways for individuals to collect and control their DNA data using blockchain technology is inspiring. So, that being said, I do want to dive into a deep dive into the technology. That's one of the great things about this show is we do high tech, but we also do high touch. So I would really love to start by understanding, what personal experience inspired this journey to enhance data privacy and personal empowerment of genomics. So, with that being said, tell me a little bit about you. Where are you from? How did you get started on this innovation path? And, what things have you done previously, say academically, personally, professionally, that have all kind of led nicely into this current mission?
Of course, Jeremy, thank you. So born and raised in Mexico City, and then moved to the Bay Area in 2015. I was back then a cybersecurity IT guy, basically. I worked in my past lives, worked for Sun Microsystems, for Oracle, for Ericsson, basically in the telecommunications industry, mostly on Unix systems. And what we did was secure them. right? So I'm a cybersecurity guy, right? As a profession, I studied I have a bachelor's degree on telecommunications and electronics. I'm an engineer in telecommunications. Then I studied an MBA. Went to Stanford to complete some management studies as well. And then again, we are in 2015. I moved my family there, moved by the blockchain technology. I was inspired to move to blockchain by Peter Diamandis during the Singularity University program for executives. Back in those days, he explained how the Bitcoin network worked. And I was my mind obviously was blown away, because I was telling my current customers back in 2015 that the most secure thing was to have a Sunfire. I think it was a 25K or something. It was a $3 million server replicated, and like that was kind of the most secure. And then Peter Diamandi comes and says, no, it's a small database that is replicated in thousands of nodes and has a very specific consensus mechanism, so nobody can cheat, and so on and so forth, right? All the Bitcoins. So I was, wow, I this is the next big thing for me in cybersecurity, because I've always thought of blockchain about having a decentralized cybersecurity network, right? And then move. But the inspiration came in 2017, because my son suffered an accident, and we had to take him to the hospital. He was 2 years old, and he was not able to stop the bleeding. He get an internal cut in his throat, and the bad news came in the way of, hey, your son has a rare blood disease, and it's a genetic condition. Unfortunately, there's no cure, and the doctor recommended an experimental drug treatment. And we consent. My wife and I were obviously very, very desperate. We consented out of fear. We were informed, obviously, that the experiment might cause brain damage, because it could now, instead of not creating clots, which is the basic problem of my son's body, and now create a lot of clots, and create a thrombosis or thrombus, right, in his brain. So we were obviously super scared. But so to make the long story short, they gave him 15 shots, and they were ineffective. So the pediatrician said, no more, it's not working. And finally, thank God, platelet transfusion saved his life. Wow. So it was super dramatic 3 or 4 nights in the hospital. It left us with a more than $300,000 bill, and the sensation that we were just our kid was taken as just an experimental individual, and that was it. So it was that moment where I said, okay, I need to. Well, the medical doctor told us, hey, you're going to learn more than me about the genetic condition of your son. That's basically the same story for every single parent with or family with a rare disease. So you become the expert of that specific issues, and you start to document everything, to try to build your own data sets, your own everything. And I realized that there was an opportunity there to create your own, let's say, vault. It was not called vault in those days. It was the genobank, basically. So we said, hey, we need a personal genetic bank where I can hold the the information of my son or the family and control it.
Mm-hmm.
And back in those days, there was this game, the CryptoKitties. I don't know if you remember it or you knew about it. That also was part of the inspiration, because the game of CryptoKitties was the first one that I knew or that I met that was tokenizing the digital DNA of each of the characters, each kitty.
Mm-hmm.
It was the game that had a 256-bit genome. And basically, the algorithm or the protocol was tokenizing that, not the image. It was tokenizing the JSON file that contained the 256-bit instructions to build the picture of the kitty, right? So that called my attention. Said, hey, we need an ERC something token. It was non-fungible since the beginning. That represents the human DNA as well, and it'll ownership, control, and that's how the concept of the biosample NFTs or the bio NFTs was born, and that then obviously led to the creation of genobank.io in a nutshell.
Wow, that's quite a story. And how's your son doing today?
He's a very happy boy. 99% regular. It says when God or nature, depending on everybody's beliefs, closes one door, it opens a window, right? And he has a very beautiful character. So he's the most positive person in the family. He's always cheering us up. Like, he's always taking care of, see who is behind. He's waiting for everybody. He's super contagious and so on and so forth. So he's a great person. And when there's an event, because he still has some epitaxis, right? He has some bleedings. He's super positive. Like he said, "Dad, no worries. I'll be okay." And he's comforting me or his mom. And no, he's I admire him a lot.
And how old is he now?
He's
how
9.
old is he now? He's 9.
Yeah.
You know, it's really interesting where you say that, the doctors, they share with you the observation that parents of children with rare disease become expert. A lot of these communities, we see this as patient advocacy, and a lot of volunteers are at the heads, the CEOs and the presidents of these organizations. And no formal training in biochemistry or molecular biology or genetics, but they can do just spirals, around me and my academic background around these, very intricate and complex disease states. And so that's true that the parents, certainly have an invested interest in the lives of their children. But it seems to me now, your son is 9, and he'll obviously be probably one of the more self-aware humans as it relates to his health. Like, as you mentioned, the analogy of, when one door closes, a window opens. We're moving into this new generation of, well, first of all, let's just say there's this whole idea of, longevity and health span, right? And, it's take this supplement, do these breathing exercises, et cetera. But, I think the real benefit, the people who are really going to inherit, from the benefits, the benefactors of this research that you're doing, for example, is the next generation, because they actually know themselves at a much deeper level, where, I start to think about, I've spent a lot of time thinking about, how humans unlock the potential in their DNA, and it's a function certainly of the DNA itself, but then the environment, where do you happen to be just by chance, and what growth factors are there, what toxins are there, what carcinogens are there. So that's, still pretty random. But then there's the other circle. If you think about it as a Venn diagram of 3, then there's, behaviorally, what are we doing? And if you think about, general health and wellness. And actually, it's not even just general health and wellness. It's even what we see in the industry, pharmaceuticals. A lot of my guests expert in this, this notion of like a digital twin, thinking about Dr. Nathan Price, Chief Innovation Officer at Thorne Nutraceuticals. He talks about, how do we get to unlocking our full health and human potential? And everybody's slightly different, for the reasons genetically and environmentally. But in order to make the behavioral change, you need to kind of have access to that information. So I got a sense that your son, who's 9, is probably pretty close to having a PhD in his own body already. So, I think maybe there's a couple of ways we can unpack this a little. So I'm really interested to know, well, I think there's some utility that your technology has offered already to your family. I'd love to hear specifically a little bit about that. I'd then also love to learn more about the different rare disease communities that you're in contact with. How does this operationalize for them? And I think we can certainly save some time at the end to learn a little bit about how we get into the future of things, because this is we're talking about blockchain, we're talking about Web3. We gotta kind of dive into some of that technology a little bit for the benefit of our users. But let's continue on the high touch. So, like, how are you using the technology that you've developed for your family? How do we go into scaling this out for rare disease? And then the future is probably, how does everybody access some level of this information to make more informed decisions?
No, absolutely. So everything starts somewhere here, right? It's a biosample collection tube or a swab, right? So usually here's the beginning of the journey. And we use the serial number of each of the kits. It could be a traditional barcode to create the vault, right? So you scan a QR code that is linked to the serial number. So all of the DNA kits are linked to already. I mean, since the patient gets the DNA kit in their hands, it's already linked to the laboratory who is going to process the sample. And when the patient scans the QR code or the participant scans the QR code, then the linkage is completed by an NFT. So,
and this is all in a de-identified way. Is that right? Is that why you're using the barcode?
Exactly.
Yeah. So it doesn't require their email. It doesn't require their ID. It's like, you're completely, your identity is completely kept separate from the vault. Is that right? Yeah,
that's exactly right.
Yeah.
And it's why blockchain is very well positioned to solve this, because it uses now wallets, right?
Right.
And a wallet has a cryptographic key that has a public component and a private component. And we use for most of our operations the public element. And just, for instance, to give access, to give consent, to participate in clinical trials, to sign papers, and so on and so forth, then we use the private key to allow people to sign, cryptographically sign. So yeah, that's exactly right. That's the first step. Then after the sample is sent or shipped to the laboratory, our protocol also, once the sample gets into the sequencer or the machine, then the laboratory, using our protocol, can also cryptographically deliver a notarized version of the files. In this case, for instance, the typical files will be the FASTQ files or the raw data files. And this is very important for the laboratories because, believe it or not, laboratories also get a lot of, let's say, requests for clarifying if they produced a specific data set or not. So it's a data provenance problem. So we solve that because we keep, obviously, the cryptographic signatures of the the data set, so we can again prove if the authenticity of the files. So once the laboratory delivers it, and it delivers to the vault of the individual or the family directly, not to a company. So that's how you claim ownership in the first steps. And later, obviously, inside the vault or the structure, which basically is a virtual machine or a virtual storage that is owned by the family, we are agnostic. So it could be on cloud, it could be on premises. Usually, we leave that data sets in the laboratory. Laboratories are pretty secure, most of them. And we create the vault, the virtual vault there. And the data is encrypted. It's client side encrypted, so it's encrypted with the family or the individual's keys or pair of keys. And from there, it becomes like a club, like a data club, or even a DAO. So for us, the family is the minimum but most important DAO of human society, right? Is the smallest cell of a human organization, right? The family. So by creating these vaults, they set their own rules, or we help to set their own rules. And that's how the governance or the decentralized governance begins. So they can now decide if they want to share their data or they want to keep it private. And the last phase is that we allow to connect the data sets to AI. So they can have private conversations. They can interrogate their own data sets and learn using the LLMs that are available. And they are now pretty good, at least to explain the variants. It's not like super like broad, like saying, okay, now AIs will design the protein that my son needs. I think that we will be able to see that type of things maybe in 10 years. Why not? Because let's say AlphaFold 2 is really advanced, but we are not there yet. So today is basically I want to learn about what variants I have, what are pathogenic or likely pathogenic, which ones could be explaining the phenotype of my son or myself, and so on. So you can have those type of conversations and then connect to experts. So our intention would be never to substitute the clinician. The opposite is now let us create a context around the family, a data-driven context, and then try to connect to the specialists of that specific variant or that specific syndrome, or as you were saying, or a specific community that is specialized in that disease. In our case, we began in Glanzmann thrombosthenia, right? So we are part of that community, but it's a Facebook group. Basically, it's not a DAO. Hey, everybody's disconnected in terms of the data set. And now the opportunity is to create data DAOs for research, right? This is being developed by us and other projects as well.
When so something that comes to mind is what's interesting about framing the test result with genomics. Well, it's not even really a test result. It's here's all of your data, and then you say, well, I can interrogate the data. What's really powerful is when you're paired with the expert who knows how to ask the right questions, you can essentially do an infinite number of queries, right? And your queries are only going to get better as the research improves in a particular segment or disease area that you're looking at, and so there's I think by extension you're certainly able to connect to the entire body of research on that particular, let's just say the hypothetical disease state we're looking at is, let's say it's like I think one of the organizations I've talked to is United Mitochondrial Disease Foundation. Well, there's actually many forms of how that phenotype might manifest, and actually there's a lot of, I think there's even some misdiagnosis of, like, I want to say perhaps maybe Parkinson's. So the idea that it's no longer like a single test, right? Where, you go to the wet lab and then you've got like a PDF paper and then the clinician reviews it and then signs off on it. And, by the way, every instance there's a possibility for false positive or false negative. So there is efficacy numbers associated with every test. And so that would be true every time you queried a digital genome. But the point is you can be very iterative with it. And actually, I mean, I can imagine you probably even develop some heuristics associated with it. You probably even develop like AI prompts that are generative as a result of feedback that you get along the way. So that's really powerful. If I think about, the number of times we test and retest and confirm or deny, assuming that the genomics data is high quality in the first place, and let's just assume that it is. You've got this paradigm now. Instead of a single test that may have to be retested countless number of times, that means collecting the biologic and sending it in for sampling, et cetera. Now you've got this digital signature that you can interrogate as the knowledge base increases an infinite number of times. So it's like sequence once and query often. So that's really powerful. Like I just think about the time savings with that is, probably decades. Like I've talked to people with rare disease who actually went through exactly that, like a decade long plus diagnostic odyssey, right? And a lot of them participated in academic research studies. They don't even know where their data is anymore because, those studies come and go. Now you're saying, well, there's this vault, and then you're connecting it, as you say, like how you said, the family is the smallest cell within humanity, and that's certainly true. If we look to history, a lot of the things that we've learned about DNA diagnostics, in particular, like the breast cancer screen, like BRCA1, BRCA2, we can thank I believe it's the Mormon population in Utah who kept really, really good records of their family pedigrees for good reason. So it's really amazing that you've got this kernel of family DNA, because the more related the DNA is, there's orders of magnitude with increase in the predictability. So, okay, so I'm interested in understanding so the technology that you've built and that you've housed through genobank.ai. So we're leveraging, Web3, or would you call that? I want to talk a little bit about Web3 and dive into blockchain, specifically, because I know enough to be dangerous, but not enough to deeply understand. So I'd like to understand that a little bit more. But before maybe you explain that to us, what about like electronic health records? Is there a plan to pair the DNA with, the clinical, say, electronic health records, or like the natural history of people, or are you going to keep this strictly focused on DNA?
No, it's the main idea is to expand it to a very broad longitudinal kind of vault.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So
yeah,
like today we're working on incorporating inside the dashboard of each participant very specific and very basic information, like your height, your weight, your sex, like if you're biological male or female, and those type of things, because usually when you share your data, some researchers need some of this information, right? So what I'm talking, like, we are trying to incorporate as we are asked to, in terms of the network of specialists that we are slowly but steadily incorporating. And I think this is the good news, because again, you need a wallet, a data wallet, for all the clinical trials. You don't want to, because even today, if you participate in 3 of them, you will have to fill the forms for the 3 of them again. Like every time you will be asked to have like very long questionnaires. And the main idea is just to automate that and just like select what do you want to share, what do you need.
Yeah.
And this is already done by the credit cards, right? So when you want to pay, your credit card is saved, and basically you just click like, I want to pay, it's my 4 last digits, and I just confirm. Voila. So we need that, or we're building that for all the interactions. Like for the most silly ones, like, hey, connect your DNA data set and find out if you're a true football fan of, I don't know, Dallas Cowboys, right? I don't know if this even exists, right? I'm just making it up. But let's say that people would be interested in that app. Well, again, is we will obviously prevent from those type of. But at the end of the day, what I'm trying to tell you, we will very easily enable this with control and privacy. And what we do with companies is we ask what regions, or as you were saying, we try to reduce every single data exploration to a query, right? Is, okay, give me the list. So we have a company that uses 48 SNPs, 48 biomarkers only. That's the only thing we give for each of the patients, right? We don't give any more information because that's the only information they need to personalize the product they sell. And I don't know if there's science behind that. Hopefully, yes. But at least our mission is, as you were saying, is like to be to build digital hygiene, right? And digital hygiene has to do with data minimization. It's a concept that comes from data privacy from the GDPR, basically, or another law. But this is very important for us. Is to how do you enable that? And the same back to the question is like incorporating the clinical, the electronic health record, your wearables, your environmental information, and all the information that could help at the end of the day. An algorithm pre-process your data sets, give an algorithmic approximation, and then a clinician, a human, or a group of clinicians be able to help you out, right? With a health issue or question or whatever. So I think that's the mission. And in the end, if you ask all the group of people, I think we are building exactly, or we're trying to build different versions of a digital twin of the individual or a digital twin of the family.
Right.
We are more obviously into the family kind of avenue because we think health should have been treated always as a family. And now with the genetic data, it makes a lot of sense. Today, it makes no sense that my dad's cardiologist is different than my cardiologist. Like, I don't know why we have a different doctor.
Yeah.
And it should be the same one, right? And the same for my kids, and maybe the same bolt, so they could obviously leverage the information even from my dad. He has like a stents now, and I have hypercholesterolemia and genetically inherited, and so on and so forth. So all this type of information, the current system is broken also in that way because it tries to separate because it maximizes the profit, but it do not maximizes the efficiency of how fast you can come with the diagnosis, having the complete history of the family in a place. So the possibilities are really good. I think there's a lot of avenues to explore and improve, but we're basically starting with 3. Like, let's allow people access, or first of all, own, access, and understand their data. That's basically our 3 core things. Like, give ownership, give access, and tools to understand. And then the 4th would be the natural one, to connect, right? Data, health data is the currency, right? To connect with like persons like you, Dr. Jeremy, and all other specialists that could welcome this new era of patient-owned or patient created data sets, as now we are calling them. And it's a challenge. I think that's the challenge, because most of the doctors will reject this information because they'll say, no, I don't know what's the provenance. Maybe you know the name of the laboratory, but I don't as your professional, so I don't. So you need to rerun the test and so on and so forth. So that's currently the one of the biggest challenges that I'm seeing. But eventually, like yesterday, we talked to an organization that they are already accepting the wearables. And I talked to them, hey, would you accept now an exome sequencing data set? And they said, yes, let's talk, and we will talk next week. And now people can connect not only their wearables, but their genetic information. And if they have a 23andMe or a Heritage or whatever, my Heritage, or it's welcome, right? So again, they would say, yeah, it will not be kind of a clinical grade data set, and we should label that as that, but it never hurts to have more information from the patient, right? It'll never be negative. Now, I think it's always going to be net positive.
Yeah.
But
Well,
I extended a little bit, but yeah.
No, that's really helpful. It makes me think of, one of the things you mentioned was, we have this with Visa. We have this with our financial information. And that wasn't always true. There's actually a book called One from Many. And it's basically D. Hawk's autobiography. And D. Hawk was the guy who basically made Visa possible. And he was up against a lot of adversity there. One of them was, I believe he's with the Bank of America, where his big push was, this can't be owned by the Bank of America. It needs to be owned by the members. So all the different banks. And, of course, there's like, I think analogous to one of the problems that you're talking about is like, well, how do you confirm, how do you validate the authenticity of the health record, or in that case, it would have been the credit card, right? And so, there were solutions for that. There were, manual credit card trackers, remember the manual imprint machines, and so there were ways to validate, and there were, essentially systems in place to basically, cover the transaction. But effectively, you think about the world before credit cards, Visa, for example. I mean, I remember a time where if I was going to the airport and I was going to travel internationally, I would have to buy currency, right? We don't need to do that anymore. And, that was just kind of annoying, although it could get pretty bad. You find yourself strapped for cash overseas, and, you can't buy food, you can't buy shelter. So, I mean, that can get pretty severe and pretty serious. And I actually think about how much more serious it is not having your full and complete personal health record and family health record available with you all the time, like when you're traveling, right? Having it made aware that you have this rare genetic condition, or you have this drug allergy, or this food intolerance, right? So, I think the future that you're talking about is, to the degree that you get effective healthcare in the future, I think will be significantly influenced in how robust your medical record is. So I mean, I think that's fascinating, and yeah, you talk about a major pain point that I'm sure everybody listening to is frustrated with at one point in time or another, and that's filling out your medical intake form, right? And I probably spent in my life days doing that. And I'm not sure of the efficacy of my answers. So I would certainly love to have all that in one place. And it's interesting. I'm doing that now for my daughter, and ours is a very, hacky system. It's just like a simple Excel spreadsheet. But and so, we can open it when we get questions, but from the doctor, for example, or say there's some, God forbid, some emergency in the future. But having access to a very comprehensive health record that actually goes back generations. So like, I think about, well, really, if I'm going to help my daughter, my health record should be in there. My wife's health record should be in there. Her grandparents should be in there, right? Because it does come back to, some things are genetic, some things are environmental, and some things are behavioral. And so it really gives us a strong jumping off point in terms of, being proactive, and even in instances where things are need to be reactive. I mean, I remember when I was a kid, I had friends with those medical alert bracelets that said, I'm allergic to penicillin or whatever it was, right? And I don't see too many of those anymore. And I wonder, like, well, why not? Are people not like, what are we doing? Are we kind of playing the lottery with our health now? But the idea that the future might be, okay, on the one hand, you're talking about building a research portal, which is great, but you could imagine, traveling with kind of like a fob that is the the basis of your health record. And in the future, medical centers would have like some kind of a scanner. So when you scan in, the the record is shared because you want the best treatment. It could be life-saving treatment. Okay, so I mean, it's a massive paradigm shift, upgrade. One of the things you talked about was the systems currently are built for economics, probably built more for payers than they are for healthcare recipients. So that's a big topic to maybe unpack on another date. But since I've got like a technology guy here, I'd like to talk a little more about, like, tell me about the web. Tell me about Web3.
Yes.
Tell me about blockchain. Tell me about this, because I think where we're going is this notion of a decentralized database of human digital data that can be self-organized. So like, you work with rare disease communities, right? It could be organized based on special interest groups. And you talked about, I think what your doctor was saying about you is like, you're going to become a citizen scientist because you're a parent, and you are motivated to become said citizen scientist. So do you see a future of more citizen science happening? I'm not saying replacing experts, I'm saying collaborating. Is that a possibility? And by the way, like, why Web3? You talked a little bit about blockchain, but walk me through like the the technical side of the solution, if you will.
No, thank you. It's a privilege.
Mm-hmm.
So when the internet started, we call that now the Web 1, right? It was the read-only kind of internet, right? It was more like a library online. You could consume data, but that was pretty much it. But the good thing about Web 1 is that whatever software you bought, it will come with the disks, right? I mean, I'm 48. I'm old enough to tell you everything about the internet. I saw it from its very early days, but it was run in your computer in total privacy, right? Whatever the software, all the data was kept there. Then the Web 2 came, and we call that the corporate internet, right? Then the big 5 letters emerged from that, right? The Facebook, the Apples, the Google, the Microsoft, and the others, right? The big
Amazon.
Thank you. Those are the big 5. And now some studies said that more than 90% of the traffic goes at least to one of them on a point in time, right? So it's a super centralized corporate internet that we have, and that created the mess that I think we're currently in. All the hacks, all the dark web. Dark web actually exists because there is a lot of leakage, illegal leakage of our data there, and there's market, and you have like the legal market and the illegal market for personal and all sorts of data sets. And that's a problem of Web 2 because we prioritize the user experience, right, and not the cybersecurity. It's understandable. I think it has to it was supposed to be that way because otherwise you wouldn't be able to scale. But now we are getting into the Web3. So we are getting back into the, okay, let's try to decentralize the corporate internet and try to separate. Blockchain is the perfect tool to separate the public information from the private information. So now it's feasible, technologically speaking, to have personal vaults. Personal data vaults will become very, very omnipresent. And most of them will be allocated in our Wi-Fi router from AT&T or Verizon or one of these providers. It'll be a family node. We foresee that coming soon. Maybe it's your phone, right? Phones are also incredibly capable now. Now you have a terabyte and like an excellent chipset there. They're AI machines in the palm of your hand. So it could be, again, your phone, but or elsewhere. We don't know, but it'll be like a family cloud or family whatever. So we call that, but we build it today in the laboratory. That's the main difference. So our concept of Web3 in general is again private data. So private bits and bytes that you can tokenize. So the essence of Web3 is the tokenization. And you could say, experts in tokenization, and said, well, Visa invented the tokens to protect the credit card transactions, and that's actually right.
Right.
But again, it was a token owned by Visa. It's a token. It's a Visa-based token. The intellectual property is from Visa. The same from PayPal, right? The PayPal is the wallet, so I can aggregate now my credit cards into PayPal, and then expose only the token without exposing the 16 digits of my credit card, right? That's a whole protocol. And PayPal was really, really advanced in that because in essence, Genobank wants to aspire to be that. We want to be the PayPal of the genomic information or the clinical information. Is sometimes in PayPal, you just need to sign to get a free membership, for instance. I mean, you don't even have to pay nothing, but you just have to make the connection, right? And share some of your data as a customer of PayPal. All of that is done again by tokens, but those tokens are owned and controlled by MasterCard, Visa, or PayPal. Web3 decentralizes the network. So there's no CEO, no company connected to these tokens, which makes that the autonomy, right? So now you have autonomous let's say, I mean, it's all part of, again, the individual. So now I am able, using this technology, to issue my own tokens. When, like back in the 1950s, Isaac Asimov was saying, in the future, every single human will have its own television channel. Now we have a TikTok. Now we have Instagram. Every individual has now its television channel. Here with Web3, you are becoming part of your own Visa or your own MasterCard. You can issue your own tokens, and it could, in our case, is consent tokens. It's tokens that have three main missions. Is, first of all, I am the owner of the data, right? I'm the originator. Second is I have the authority to give you access to my vault. Is my island, my private island of data inside the internet, because I control this by encryption, right? I have the encryption key, and then I can connect it to whoever I want. So its autonomy so it returns the dignity to the individual that was taken away from the corporate, because the corporate internet was the I don't know if it was the mission or not, but the result is that we are just an account number more, and they don't care, strictly talking, if our data gets hacked or not, like the 23andMe. Like, okay, there's there's going to be some legal implications and some reputational implications. But the fact is that my data was leaked,
Right.
and that cannot be repaired.
Right.
So at least now I can control the connections. It's not perfect solution, because experts in cybersecurity might say, well, one of your connections might leak your information. I said, well, yeah, but at least the data set now has a registry in the public notary service, which is the blockchain. And
Right.
now I can say, hey, that data set is registered under my wallet, and I can claim ownership in case I find it in the dark side, in the dark web, sorry, and claim. And because now I have a legal provenance, right? I have my rights registered into a public blockchain that is globally available. So again, it's like having a MasterCard or a Visa, but it's now a protocol, not a company.
Right.
It is neutral in terms of political or country kind of
Right.
Yeah.
Right. This might be a dumb question, but would it be possible to like tokenize our browsing data? Like the thing with all these cookies, that we enable and we share to third parties, right? And now we have to companies have to get us to agree, right? To authorize the sharing of basically our web browsing data. So yes, is it possible to tokenize that web behavior? Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
Basically, the Web2 wallet is your browser.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
But it's a wallet that empowers the company.
That's right. Yeah.
The companies gets your browser pregnant of the cookies, right? So it impregnates our browser with cookies, and they watch our behavior inside the company. So Web3 is the opposite. Let's say an NFT is now an individually given cookie toward the exterior or the external entity, right? So it's turning the table around and say, hey, you want access to my data? I am the only one that can give you an access token. Right. So now the wallet is kind of turning the points around and asking for cryptographic signatures. So totally. Now there is a catch. In theory, obviously everything can be tokenized, but it comes with a price, because the blockchain will charge you a gas fee for using. So it has to have an economical or an economic alignment.
Right.
For genomic information and healthcare, because of the relevance and the sensitivity, it makes total sense.
Yeah.
But I don't know if, let's say, just browsing cookies kind of history might say, I said yes, and I think Brave is doing it, which is basically capturing attention, right? So they are trying to tokenize people's attention, how much time you're spending on a specific ad or on a specific, and they are tokenizing that. Yeah.
Right. Well, because there's so much passive browsing now, right? I mean, especially if you're looped into any of the social media networks. One of the ways I've started to think about it is, you remember late night TV?
Yeah.
So there would be late night TV, be like infomercials, and well, who's up watching late night TV? People who can't sleep, people who are stressed out, people who are, maybe grieving, dealing with some tragedy, very vulnerable people, right? And I think about the social media channels and, them knowing all of your, quote unquote, behavior on their channels and their ability to influence you and nudge you gradually, whether by design or whether just by fluke, for the purpose of getting more eyes on the page and therefore getting served more ads. So I think there's an economic argument for it from the, perspective of the corporation, right? And I'm not saying that there's any necessary, I'm not promoting or denying conspiracy theory and saying that they're all trying to get you to one thing. It's just, well, based on your behavior, based on, like Amazon's like, you like this, you might like that, you might like this, you might like that. And then the next thing you know, I don't know, you're buying hand grenades and you started looking for goldfish. And I don't know how we got there, but we got there. And I guess my point is, like maybe there's a mindless, kind of hedging towards those outcomes. And I don't know that your user behavior is necessarily authentically yours, because something might be interesting enough based on your previous 10 searches or queries, but you would have never started with that, right? So I question well, we already know there's the detrimental side of this, particularly like teens, mental health of teens, particularly mental health of young girls, bullying online. There's all kinds of room for improvement, but just the idea of taking something like the behavioral data, the web browsing data, and actually including that as a health metric could be really interesting. The reason that I say that is, well, because your online behavior is tied to mental health, right? So even knowing how much time you're spending online, what kind of content are you consuming? The interesting that the prescription in the future might be like a digital prescription. Oh, reset your browser, right? Or so I think there's something to that, which yeah, who knows how we might explore that. But so tell me, your next big move right now. You've launched the platform, you've solved your own problem, you're saving the life of your family, and now you're moving into some rare disease focus. I know you have some lofty goals. I think you mentioned 10,000 families, or was it 1,000 families? I can't remember. What communities are you working with currently, and what are your goals?
No, thank you. So we have a happy problem, which is we have a lot of work to do, and we need to choose one, or like try to focus, because we have. So we're working on 3 projects right now. One of them is creating an ancestry very info, or yeah, it's for entertainment only, right? It's an ancestry DAO. One of our customers is Somos. Somos is an ancestry company trying to map the Latina population. Exactly, ancestry. So they already have an interesting bioinformatic pipeline where they could trace your genetic traces of pre-Hispanic ancestries, like Mayan, Zapotec, Aztec, and so on and so. So they have, right? And it's very interesting because obviously populations like in California, right? It's one out of 2 are from originally from Mexico, or they have a Mexican ancestry, right? As they said. So there's a lot of curiosity there. So that's one project. It has its research brands, but it's going to become the first algorithmic ancestry pipeline, right? It's completely automated. It's token based. The connection will be owned by you, so the process will be privacy preserving, because we will not have access to your data or the derived data, which is your ancestry, your maps, your exploration. Will be totally private. So that's kind of the experience. Then we have the other one, which is the variant interpretation, that has 2 things. The first one is the annotation. We are automating the annotation of the data sets. And the second is we are enabling the data interrogation with privacy. So that's kind of the core. And basically has to do with clinical relevant variants. That's minimum. And then the third one is the connection, right? Is now that families have increased their curiosity, but because now they know more, and if you know more, it becomes a rabbit hole. You want to now control more, and you have to have more conversations with specialists like yourself, and so on and so on, right? So you want to connect to the person who can most efficiently help you with your question or health issue, whatever. That's the most challenging one, because a lot of people, as you were saying, might be interested that blockchain is involved, but we're just saying, hey, we're an API, right? We are an API for families that have their own data sets, and we want to connect you to your community. That is working. That is working for us, and So we have one big hospital in the pipeline. We have two rare disease communities, and we have 3 laboratories with the DNA because we white label our solution, so you can basically have your logo here, I mean your kit, and we will provide the QR code that will be linked to your laboratory. They are interested in that because also a lot of laboratories even have the requirement to delete the data 60 days after they produce because it's enormous amounts of data, and they just want to have a notarized way to make sure you have your data. You will sign the receipt. They say, hey, I have my data. Then 60 days later, I will delete it. But now I can sleep well because you signed that you received your data, and you cannot later come and say, hey, I never received my data, and well, I no longer have it. So we solved that problem for a bunch of laboratories. So today we have 33 laboratories, 3 more are coming. So far we have 35 families, but our plan is to get to 1,000 next year. Families are talking a lot, and we have one family that recommended to 6 families only in a barbecue. And exactly, because they say, okay, you want to interrogate your DNA and learn, and here's what are we doing, and so on and so forth. They start spreading the word. So families are really viral in terms of how to communicate. And actually today we're not accepting more. We are just doing an upgrade, and then we will scale more in September. And we will try to grow. We want to grow responsibly, right? Because this we are basically creating the tracks while the train is a goal. So it's genetic data, it's clinical data. So we are conservative in how we're growing. Yeah.
Got it. Well, Daniel, there's a lot of folks who are listening are, they could be, they are people who have DNA, all of them. some of them are family members, other people. I'm sure other listeners, work at labs, work at other data companies. How is the best way for people to reach you?
Thank you. Please, if you have any specifically you're suspicious that you might have a rare disease or somebody in your family, please allow us to help. We would love to help to connect to a laboratory that offers an appropriate kit. And please contact me in my email is the easiest, is daniel@genobank.io. I'm very active in 2 social networks, which is Twitter and LinkedIn. So my users is basically D Uribe D in Twitter, and in LinkedIn I'm Daniel Uribe, and you will see me like if you search me like Daniel Uribe Bio NFT, you will find our research papers, you will find the specifications of the software, some videos, and so on and so forth. So I think I'm easy to catch, hopefully. And I'm in WhatsApp, I'm in Telegram. So if you need to talk a little bit more, just send me a direct message through the social networks, and we will connect very easily. Yeah.
Got it. Well, I'll capture those things from you and put them in the show notes. Daniel, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm excited to have you back. Maybe we'll check in again at the end of the year and see how you're tracking towards your goal. But thank you so much for all that you're doing and for receiving the call from your son's emergency to make the world better for everybody. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Jeremy. I think, we should empower parents. Parents is a powerhouse. And I really speak for every parent out there that is trying to help as much, because it's how you basically show love, right? Is love is care, they say, and I think this is exactly right. And today is care about the data as well. I want to be a responsible parent, so when my son becomes 18 and say, hey, here's your vault, here's your data, now you're responsible, you have the control, here's the relations, you can revoke them, now you're the CEO of your data, right?
Wow.
And I want to do that, and I want every single parent to invite them to think about the same. And it's time. The technology now is here. It was not available 5 years ago, and this is new. And then if it's now an interaction with the AIs, right? AIs will be there is going to be a personal AI for everybody, or a personal AI for each family. You better own it. You better be the controller of all the information you're feeding it with, right? And then, like, because the personal Jarvis from Tony Stark, it'll become reality. And one of the most exciting applications is health. Like, hey, Jarvis, help me to order a kit from this lab. I want to test my microbiome. And then run the first iterations. And okay, communicate me with Dr. Jeremy Koenig, because I need to ask him some questions. Please book some time with him. That is going to happen. But always the question is where this is going to be seated, who will own the data, who will control, who will guarantee the privacy of the patient, and protect the IP also of you as a doctor, right? There's an IP, an intellectual property also playing here, and that is blockchain. If you tokenize everything, tokenization means everything is like described, and you have an owner. So you will have, hey, this is the tokenization of the data from Dr. Jeremy. This is the tokenization of patient's data. It's separate. Everybody knows who owns what. And that's it. So thank you very much again. I extended, but my heartfelt gratitude to all of you and your audience. It was a pleasure and honor, and hopefully we will see again.
Thank you so much. Just to recap on everything you said there, I mean, what a gift to your son, to the next generation, the redefining what legacy is, and a true inheritance to, empower his becoming. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Jeremy. It was a pleasure.
All right. Thank you for joining us on this enlightening episode of the DNA of Things. Today we heard from Daniel Uribe, the founder and CEO of genobank.io. And wow, what a story. We heard in detail about the synergies from that intersection between genomics and blockchain technology. We learned how Daniel's personal experience with his son's rare genetic condition inspired the creation of genobank.io, a platform that empowers families to own and control their genetic data. Daniel shared his vision for a future where genetic data is securely managed, enabling personalized healthcare and fostering greater collaboration between patients and healthcare providers. By understanding and utilizing our genetic information, we can make more informed health decisions and transform lives. I hope this episode has inspired you to think about the possibilities of owning your own health data and what that means, its impact on not just your health and wellness, but your entire families. If you found this discussion valuable, please, as always, share it with your friends and family. We are building a community of creators, and we are more than the sum of our parts. And think of all the things we might do synergistically, listening together and working together. You can spread the knowledge and empower more people to take control of their health and their lives and create a better future, bringing heaven on earth. Thank you for listening, and stay tuned for more insightful conversation on the DNA of